As for those who receive their records with their left hands or from behind their backs, their faces will be darkly stained. The fair color of their eyes will be altered, a brand will be stamped on the tips of their noses, their bodies will be bloated, and their skins will turn coarse and rough. They will cry out in woeful distress, when they look at their records and see their sins with their own eyes. Whatever the nature of the sins they committed in the past, be they minor or major offenses, they will find them, every single one of them, substantiated in their records. They will therefore be dejected in their feelings, and their thoughts will be filled with foreboding. Their alarm will be intense, and great will be their anxiety. Their heads will be bowed, their eyes downcast, and their necks bent low. They may try to steal a glance at the fire of hell that awaits them, but once they have looked, it will be impossible for them to withdraw their gaze from the sight, because they have laid their eyes upon something that is enormous, huge, horrifying, momentous, overwhelming, distressing, terrible, dreadful, tragic, repulsive, disturbing to the feelings, and tear-provoking to the eyes, and there he will be trembling so violently that they cannot produce articulate speech. Their bonds of kinship will be severed so that they cannot connect with one another. There will therefore be no family ties to link them together on that day. And they will not be responsible for one another. They will be stricken with such personal loss that they cannot recuperate. They may beg for a second chance, but their pleading will go unanswered. They will have to acknowledge the truth of that which they used to dismiss as false, for now they are thirsty and unable to quench their thirst, hungry and unable to satisfy their hunger, naked and unable to clothe their nakedness, defeated and unable to triumph. They are stricken with grief and deprivation, having lost themselves and their families, their goods and their profits. While the people are in this condition, Allah, exalted is He, will suddenly command the keepers of hell to make their exit from it, together with their assistants, and to bring with them all their tools and instruments, such as chains, shackles and grappling hooks. They will thereupon emerge from hell and take up a position outside it, while they wait to see what further orders they receive. When the wretched people notice that the keepers have come out from hell, and when they set eyes upon their fetters and their gear, they will start biting their own hands. They will eat their fingernails, then cry out in distress as their blood comes gushing forth. Their feet will shake and stumble, and they will despair of anything good. Then Allah, exalted is He, will give the order, seize them and tie them up, then roast them on the blazing fire, then bind them securely in chains. Whenever Allah wishes to cast a group of people into those layers of hell, He summons their keepers and says to them, "Seize these people." 70 angels immediately rush towards each individual member of the group concerned. They tighten their bonds, putting heavy shackles on their necks and fixing chains through their nose. This causes them to be throttled, and their spinal columns broken to pieces, since their forelocks are bent over behind their backs and tied to their feet, heavy shackles on their necks and fixing chains through their noses. This will causes them to be throttled, and their spinal columns broken to pieces, since their forelocks are bent over behind, backs and tied to their feet. Once they have been subjected to this treatment, their eyes will become glazed, their jugular veins will be inflated, the flesh of their necks will be scorched, and their blood vessels will be stripped back. The heat of the shackles will burn into their heads, causing the brains to boil. Their brains will then spill out onto their outer layers of skin and trickle down to their feet. This will cause their outer layers of skin to peel off, and the fleshy parts beneath to turn green, as the pus flows out of them. When the shackles are placed on their necks, they will fill the whole area between their shoulders and their ears. Their body parts will therefore be scorched, their lips will be hacked to pieces, their teeth will be exposed like fangs, and their tongues will stick out as they utter noises and screams. Those shackles will gleam with the glow of soaring flames, the heat of which will flow through their veins like blood, leaving them hollow. Since the flames of the fire of hell will also be flowing through them, the heat of those shackles will reach their hearts. Detached from their strings, their heart will move up till they reach their throats, and this will intensify their strangulation. Their voices will be cut off completely, and their outer layers of skin will totally disappear. Then, while they are in this condition, Allah, exalted is He, will command the keepers of hell to provide them with clothing. They will dress them at once in shirts and trousers. Their garments will be extremely dark black in color, reeking with the stench of decay, rough and coarse to the touch, and ablaze from the intensity of their heat. If they were set down on the mountains of the earth, they would cause them to melt. Then Allah, Almighty and glorious is He, will say to the keepers of hell, herd them away to their dwelling places. They will thereupon produce another set of chains, longer and coarser than those in which the people had already been firmly secured. Each of the angels will then take one of those chains and use it to bind all the members of one of the religious or whatever belief of communities together. Then he will place the end of the chain over his shoulder and turn his back on them. Then he will set off with them, dragging them along with their faces on the ground. In the rear of each religious or whatever the belief of the community, there will be a team of 70,000 angels, prodding its members with goading irons until they drive them to hell, at the brink of which they will bring them to a halt. At this point the angels will say to them, "This is the fire of hell, the reality of which you were in the habit of denying. Is this mere sorcery, or can you not see? Now you must roast in it, so you may or may not have the patience to endure, but that will not make the slightest difference as far as you are concerned. You are simply being repaid for what you used to do."